So Finding Nemo, the big golden book. Okay. Finding Nemo. Okay. At the edge of the Great Barrier Reef in Australia, a mother and father clownfish watched over the grotto where their eggs were about to hatch. We still have to name them, Coral said to her husband, Marlin. I like Nemo. Suddenly, a hungry barracuda appeared. Marlin tried to protect the coral and the eggs, but the barracuda knocked him out cold. Marlin awoke to discover that one tiny, injured egg was all that was left of his family. He cradled the egg in his fin. I promise I'll never let anything happen to you, Nemo, Marlin said. From that day on, Marlin was very protective of his son, especially since Nemo was born with one fin that was smaller than the other. When it was time for Nemo to go to school, Marlin was nervous, but Nemo couldn't wait. The teacher, Mr. Ray, assured Marlin that Nemo would be safe, but Marlin panicked when he learned that the class was going to the drop-off, the very cliff where the barracuda had attacked his family. While Mr. Ray taught the class about ocean life, Nemo and 3 of his new friends sneaked away to the edge of the drop-off. They dared each other to swim up and touch a boat anchored nearby. Marlin, who had been following Nemo, swam into view and told Nemo they were going home. You think you can do these things, but you just can't, he said. Nemo was tired of hearing that, so he was too little and too weak to do anything. So he swam to the boat and defiantly hit it with his fin. Suddenly, Nemo's friends began to shout, "Swim, Nemo, swim!" Nemo turned around and swam right into the diver. "Daddy, help me," he cried. Marlin looked at helplessly as the diver scooped Nemo up and swam to the surface. "Nemo," Marlin cried, swimming after his son. As the boat sped away, scuba mask fell overboard sank into the ocean. Has anyone seen a boat?" Marlin cried to some fish swimming by. "They took my son, but no one would help him." Finally, a blue tang named Dory told him she had seen the boat. "Follow me," she said. Unfortunately, Dory couldn't remember anything for more than a few minutes. When she turned and saw Marlin, she got angry. "Stop following me, okay?" she cried. Suddenly, a big shark named Bruce showed up. Bruce took Dory and Marlin to a sunken submarine full of sharks that were trying to become vegetarian. Marlin didn't trust them, but then Marlin spotted the scuba mask that had fallen off the boat. He saw some strange markings on the back of the mask. "I don't read human," he said. All of a sudden, Bruce got hungry. He chased Dory and Marlin through the submarine, and the 2 fish barely escaped. Yikes, look at those teeth. Far away, Nemo was dropped into a fish tank in the dentist's office. The other fish were thrilled to meet Nemo, a fish from the open sea. Later that afternoon, Nigel the pelican stepped in for a visit. The dentist, Dr. Sherman, shooed him away. Then Dr. Sherman announced that Nemo was going to be a present for his niece, Darla. The other fish told Nemo that Darla wasn't very nice to her pets. That night, the tank fish held a ceremony to accept Nemo into their group and gave him the new name, Sharkbait. Afterward, Gil, who was the leader of the tank gang, shared his plan for how they would all escape, a dangerous plan that required Nemo to swim into the tank filter. Meanwhile, Marlin and Dory had escaped from the sharks. Unfortunately, Dory had accidentally dropped the scuba mask into the deep trench. As they swam down to the darkness to retrieve the mask, a glowing orb appeared. It was attached to a hungry anglerfish. While Marlin struggled with the fierce angler, Dory used the fish's light to read the writing on the mask. P. Sherman, 42 Wallaby Way, Sydney. After she and Marlin had gotten away from the angler, Dory asked the school of moonfish for directions to Sydney. "Follow the East Australian current," they said. Marlin had already started to swim away when one of the moonfish warned Dory, "When you come to the trench, swim through it, not over it." When they arrived at the trench, Marlin insisted that swimming over it was safer, and unfortunately Dory couldn't remember what the moonfish had told her. Soon she and Marlin were surrounded by stinging jellyfish. "Here's the game," said Marlin desperately. "Whoever can hop the fastest out of these jellyfish wins. You can't touch the tentacles, only the tops." They had almost made it through when Dory got stung. Marlin pulled her free, but then he got stung too. As he and Dory emerged from the school of jellyfish, the world turned dark. Marlin and Dory woke up on the back of a giant sea turtle. "Taking on the jellies, awesome," Crush the turtle exclaimed. As Marlin and Dory rode the East Australian current toward Sydney, Marlin told Crush his friends about his quest to find his son. Soon the tale was being passed throughout the ocean, from sea to creature to sea creature. Nigel heard the news about Marlin and Dory from another pelican and rushed to the dentist's office to tell Nemo. "Your dad's been fighting the entire ocean looking for you," he announced. "My dad?" Nemo asked. "Really?" Nigel nodded. "Word is he's headed this way, to Sydney." Inspired by his father's bravery, Nemo decided to try Gill's escape plan. He darted into the filter and jammed a pebble into its blades, which broke the filter. The fish had 2 days until Darla arrived. If the tank got dirty enough and the dentist had to clean it, they just might be able to make their escape. Yeah. The next day, the fish were swimming in a slimy green water. They couldn't have been happier. Dr. Sherman was going to have to clean the tank before Darla arrived. "Are you ready to see your dad, kid?" asked Gill. Nemo nodded happily. Not far away, Marlin and Dory had just been swallowed by a whale. As the water level in the whale's mouth began to lower, Marlin became frantic. "I've got to get out. I have to find my son," he cried as he held onto the whale's tongue. Dory spoke to the whale. He says to let go," she told Marlin. Taking a deep breath, Marlin put his trust in Dory, and they fell back to the back of the whale's mouth. The whale surfaced for air and spouted Marlin and Dory right into the Sydney harbor. Now all they had to do was find the boat that had taken Nemo, but there were boats as far as the eye could see. Marlin and Dory searched throughout the night without any luck. In the morning, a hungry pelican came along and scooped them up. But Marlin wasn't about to let himself be eaten. He had come too far. He and Dory wiggled their way out of the pelican and onto a dock where Nigel happened to be sitting. "I've got to find my son Nemo," Marlin gasped. Nigel couldn't believe it. "He's that fish who's been fighting the whole ocean," he declared. By that time, a flock of hungry seagulls had gathered. They wanted to eat Marlin and Dory. He's like, "Hop into my mouth if you want to live," Nigel said. Marlin and Dory jumped into Nigel's beak, and soon they were off to find Nemo. That same morning, Nemo and his friends woke up to a clean tank. The dentist had installed a brand new high-tech filter while they were sleeping. "The escape plan is ruined," the fish cried. Just then, the office door opened. It was Dr. Sherman and Darla. Nemo quickly came up with a new plan. When Dr. Sherman put him in a plastic bag, he rolled over and played dead. Nemo hoped the dentist would flush him down the toilet so he would travel through the pipes to the ocean and freedom. But instead, the dentist dropped Nemo into a tray next to Darla. A dental tool pierced the bag and it began to leak. Suddenly, Nigel flew in the window with Marlin and Dory in his beak. Marlin saw Nemo floating upside down and feared the worst. Dr. Sherman pushed Nigel back and outside before Marlin could get to his son. Darla picked up Nemo's bag and shook it. The tank fish knew they had to do something to save Nemo, so they launched Gill out of the tank and onto Darla's head. Darla screamed and let go of the bag, and Nemo fell out onto a dental mirror. Yikes. Gill flipped himself onto the tray beside Nemo. "Tell your dad I said hi," he said. Then Gill smacked his tail on the dental mirror, catapulting Nemo into the spit tank. The little fish escaped down the drain. Back in the harbor, Nigel dropped Dory and Marlin into the sea. Marlin was heartbroken. He thought Nemo was gone forever. Marlin thanked Dory for her help and said goodbye. Then he swam off and began his long journey home. They look sad. Meanwhile, Nemo was riding the pipes through the water treatment plant. When he came out, a hungry crab greeted him with his snapping claws. Luckily, Nemo quickly swam away before the crab could eat him. Nemo bumped into Dory, and Dory promised to help him find his father. They learned that Marlin had gone to the fishing grounds. Dory and Nemo finally found Marlin, but they had no time to celebrate. A net swept Dory along with the school of groupers, but Nemo knew how to free everyone. He told Marlin, "Dad, I can do this." Marlin nodded and let Nemo try his plan. Nemo bravely plunged into the net and told everyone to swim down. His plan worked. The net broke open and the fish escaped. Dory and Marlin found Nemo beneath the net. Marlin was relieved when Nemo's eyes fluttered open. He was okay. A few weeks later, Nemo was ready to go back to school. As Nemo got ready for class, Marlin realized that he didn't have to worry about his son so much. Nemo gave Marlin a big hug before heading off. "Love you, Dad," said Nemo. "Love you too, son," said Marlin. Here they are hugging. The end.